Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm MTG Gaming Bob,
I'm MTG Gaming Matt, and
and today we've got a special episode. We have a former Magic the Gathering artist. Stay tuned.
Yeah, these are pieces that I did. Like we said, when I worked for Magic the Gathering, I did not get in on the original Alpha deck. I was working for Steve Jackson Games for about a year, doing interior work for his GURP supplements, which were generic universal role playing something. I can't remember what the P stands for. And then I met Lisa Stevens going to Gen Con because until this year, I had been at every Gen Con except for I started in '88, and I had been at every one except for until now, until all this happened.
right.
And I met Lisa there at one of the shows, and had been collecting my work and asked me, hey, do you want to do this one? Is a piece I did called Binding Grass. And she asked me, and she goes, hey, do you want to do some stuff for this game we're working on? She's like, hey, we can't afford to pay you guys very much, so we'll give you like $100 plus stocks for our company. And I was like, whatever, sure. And the nice thing about, working way back when was that they let you do anything you want, literally anything. So there was no style book. There was really no storyline. That's a piece I did called Abyssal Spectre. They said, we'll put your name on it. For artists is a big deal. That will put your name, actually not just your name in the bottom, but you'll put your name on the card saying illustrated by, blah, 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 Sam Smith or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, oh, great. So I did. And then after about a year or so, it started blowing up. Like you said, just exploding. And I got to do a couple of other ones. Okay, yeah. Order of the White Shield. Here is.
And then there was another Order of the Blue Shield, I think, or there's another order.
Right there. Order of the Sacred Torch.
Yeah, that's the one.
They were
much better than what I see on the
I
cards.
know, I'm loving it.
Here is Surge of Strength.
Surge of Strength is real good. Yep, I got that.
Well, and Surge of Strength I did, of course, to repeat Justice because, because Justice I remember doing that because, of course, we were talking before about playing Dungeons and Dragons. And something I don't know about you guys, but I've always been like, you know what? Mages and magic, they always get kind of crapped on. Because people are like, yeah, they just look at him with his pretty little hat and crap like that. And I'm like, that's some bullshit. So I want my mage to be badass.
I was like, he looks cool.
My mage, I wanted him to look badass and be badass. I wanted to repeat that. And that's just kind of a particular thing that I've always felt like about doing that. And one of the freedoms, at least for me, this was way back when. I don't know how it is nowadays because I haven't done anything in a long time. Much more free, or was much more free, because they just said do anything. They needed to get the game out there and just wanted to get it started. And
right.
So I think when we did them, I'm pretty sure it was like $100 a card plus like $100 in stock. Really, especially in '94, that was pretty good, because the original art you were doing was about, and it still might be around that size, was around 3 inches by 5 inches. And that's a pretty good deal. Nowadays, I know from talking to my more recent magic artist buddies, you get a flat fee, and it runs between I think $1,000 and $2,000. But there's no stock, there's no royalties. Which we were getting royalties based on that. So you got stock and royalties on the image. That is very unusual. That's not a usual in any field to get that. Maybe as musicians, I don't know. But as a straight artist, that's very unusual. And they offered it because they needed to get artists. And they're like, what the heck? Let's just get them out here.
Yeah, why not?
So that's where the artists started making like big bucks. And, which was great for them. And I had some. I didn't have tons, but I had some. And they eventually, I think what happened, at least it happened with me, so I can't say for everybody, or people told me and I forgot. Eventually, they paid us to a certain amount and then said, hey, we can't afford to keep doing this. We're going to buy back your stock. And exposed to that, and it was a big payout. I was like, I mean, mine was good. It wasn't huge, but it was nice. But other people did well, which was fantastic because as artists, you don't get that. You don't usually get the ability to make enough money. Some artists I knew to buy a home, to pay for a house.
Right.
From doing work for a company. That doesn't usually happen. You do like everybody else and go, hey, I'm happy I got paid. Nowadays, I know they have style guides, which just like everything else, if you imagine doing a movie or doing a book, here's our outline, here's the story that's happening.
Awesome.
Now, here's the work that I do nowadays. And now I do work digitally and traditionally. You were asking before, how do I get started? Okay, so being an artist, I was not one of those kids that grew up going, I want to be an artist. I grew up thinking that, for some strange reason, thinking that I was going to be in the sciences because I love biology.
Okay.
And loved the symmetry and organization of it, and loved how things arrange themselves. But my first passion from it was fantasy. So fantasy was my dream. I loved it. And even before fantasy, before comic books, before I was introduced to playing Dungeons and Dragons in high school, was mythology. Because, what kid, at least in the 70s, didn't grow up getting the mythology books of, the Greeks and the Romans and
right.
the Norse and Egyptian, and I was just absorbed with it. And we would go to the drive-in movies and see. I loved it because there were still some drive-in movies around then, and we'd see like the 7 Voyages of Sinbad, and I got to see the original Superman movie on the drive-in, and this was way before Dungeons and Dragons really came out. This had been early 70s because I think that was late 70s.
Right.
And I was in love. I loved fantasy. I loved mythology. I loved the idea of somewhere that would live in another world, and has reality to it, but has fantasy with it. And the way that I feel about fantasy, and always have felt about fantasy, is it itself is its own genre. It can be fantasy hard. You can make it soft. You can make it cute. You can make it, steampunky. You can
do modern fantasy even.
Oh yeah. And that's pretty much. I kind of decided for myself that pretty much that's what I would be if I was going to be anything else. I would be into fantasy. So if I knew how to sing, I'd be a fantasy singer. If I knew how to, be a writer, I would do fantasy writing. Unfortunately, I do art. So that's kind of where I go and where I do. So I, grew up, loving fantasy, and went to school at the University of Alabama and got my degree in graphic design and art history and printmaking. So I was in school for 5 years and discovered going to conventions then. And like the first convention we ever went to, which I'm sure I can't explain a convention, is a gathering. When I say conventions, I mean science fiction and fantasy conventions or anime or anything. This was before they were all subdivided and huge. This was late 80s, 88, 87, 86, 87, 88. And they were around, but they weren't as ubiquitous as you see today. And I discovered one, and it was our group of friends from college, and we all bundled into my little piece of shit 1970s car, and we get halfway to the first annual Dragon Con on our way there to go to it, just to go, and it dies on the way. So we have to turn around. The next year, we go to Continuity in Birmingham, Alabama, and I have my drawings of all of our Dungeons and Dragons characters.
Ooh.
Like the very, like you're sitting there, and it was like probably 6 to 8 of us and our dungeon master, and I'd start drawing the characters. And they weren't big, but I was like, what the hell am I doing? And my sister, Victoria Williams, it's like, look, they have an art show. And I was like, oh, cool, let's go in there. and we're walking around, and what they do is they have big pegboard panels up, and you hang your artwork up, whether it's, whatever type your artwork is, whether it's flat art, or sculptures or whatever. And then they have bid sheets that people can bid on and buy. And she's like, you need to put your drawings in there. Like, no, I don't. That's nuts. I'm not doing that. She's like, yes, you are. So I stayed up all night, and she made me stay up all night where we're playing Dungeons and Dragons at this tiny little 200-person convention, and hand cut maps, because you couldn't just hang them up on a piece of paper.
Okay.
And I didn't know about map boards or whatever, and I was like hand cutting them, shaking and putting them in there. And I hung them up. And then, we stayed up till 4 or 5 in the morning and crashed in the one hotel room like you do, with 20 of us in there.
Oh, wow.
And I woke up the next day and went down, scared to the art show, and there was my art, and it had bids on it.
Wow.
And which blew my mind. I mean, and there was like 8 of them, and 6 of them had bids on them. And I ended up, I was like shaking. I ended up selling 6 of the 8 for like $46. And it was, to this day, like the best $46 I've ever met.
Yeah.
I've ever made, ever. And it's because the idea that people were buying, and even to this day I feel this way, people were exchanging their time for my ideas. Yeah. And that is a sacred, important thing. And I got addicted and fell in love with going to conventions or sending my artwork, even if I'm not there, sending my artwork to conventions and selling them. And I was able to pay for, by doing that, and it was my sister Victoria, who's married to Alan Williams, the other amazing magic artist, Lawrence Allen Williams, or Law, if you have any of his cards. So I would do black and white drawings of my art, and I would ink them, and then I would print them, have them printed by a printer. And then when people were at shows, like at conventions, they would tell me what color they want. I would go back to the room at night and then hand color them.
Wow.
What was cool about that was it gave me the time to have the 10,000 hours to learn how to paint. Not that I'm always still learning about painting.
Right.
So I got addicted. After I graduated from high school or college, I still did freelance work, working for Magic, working for Steve Jackson Games. I worked for Dungeon Magazine, Dragon Magazine.
I was going to ask if you did any D&D stuff.
Yeah, I did for TSR. God, let's see if I can find any.
Amazing. I love it.
Oh my God, I should have looked for way back when. And these are old pieces when I first started. And then I discovered, so I was doing cons, doing conventions, doing freelance work. And then I discovered Renaissance fairs in 1994. And I was just down the rabbit hole like, I'm in love. Because what it is, well, what is it? It's a real, you're living in a D&D town, Yeah. And I was sucked in. And that's what we've been doing for, since 94, almost 30 years. And we have shops around the country where I sell my artwork and the merchandise of my artwork. And if I'm not there at the show, then I have staff and wonderful people that sell it for me, and which is fantastic. Nowadays, I do digital and traditional work, which I can show you like a beginning, middle, and end and how they end up. I'm just looking for some more pencils from Magic the Gathering. We were talking about that particular.
I feel like I should be chiming in here more, but I'm just absolutely fascinated. I hope other people are watching this. It's like watching a show.
It's weird.
This is amazing.
Here, hopefully you can see these if you start. No, that one's too large. And so, what's fascinating that I see nowadays is that younger people, younger or older, doesn't really matter. The geek community has always been amazingly supportive for young artists and young creators out there. Whether you're selling your work on conventions, because that's what it was forever. And then when people first had their original websites in the late 90s, and then nowadays having things where you have it on DeviantArt, or you have it on DeviantArt, or where you have it on where you can put it on Reddit. You can put it on anything, which is fabulous because people are so accepting of what's out there.
say as I'm looking at your work here, but your style to me sort of has a very comic book meets Boris Vallejo feel to me.
Oh, yep, yep. I went to I went to a wonderful workshop, which is still around, and he is one of the workshop people. I wasn't really a comic book person until I was in high school. I didn't really discover it because I didn't really know about it. And then I discovered it, I discovered it during the time when it was like Chris Claremont, wait a minute, I forgot his name all of a sudden. Yes, Claremont, Jim Lee, Image, from the 90s. And to me, comics always work. The comics that always worked were the ones that had a lot of dynamism to them, very movie-like. There's two different types of art, at least that I see it as. There's illustrative, and then there's print work, or an individual standalone piece. The stuff that I did for Magic the Gathering, and when I've done other work for other game companies, is illustrative, meaning it's telling a story that I'm not telling. I'm trying to tell a story for whatever the company is.
One thing that I was curious about, you had mentioned that from a fairly young age that you kind of, well, how old were you when you knew that you wanted to do illustration and drawing and whatnot? It seems like it was one of those kind of revelations where once you started doing it and you found success in it, you figured you'd do it for the rest of your life. Do you remember when that kind of tipping point was?
You know what? I was in college, and every senior in college is like, "Oh, what am I gonna do?"
Right.
So I started working for Steve Jackson Games right out of school, and I had been freelancing with him. Now these are pieces that I'm picking up that are more recent pieces.
Okay.
That are traditional, drawn over and then digitally drawn over and then painted again. Or they're just straight oils. And I was doing it, and I was like, okay, all right, yay, this is what I'm doing now. I'm gonna work for Dungeon Magazine. I'm gonna be a book cover artist. So this was, early 90s, before everything exploded. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I worked for Steve Jackson Games, and I burned myself out. And it was great, but it beyond exhausted me. It just blew my mind. It just was like, And I realized, you know what? I think I want to do my own thing. I think that's something that I learned from the 70s, growing in the 70s and 80s. And in Ohio, our dad was an engineer, and we had to move every 4 or 5 years because manufacturing was moving out of America.
Right.
And he is an engineer, but, he was just losing his job. And me and the rest of our, kids in our family learned not to really trust corporations, and you gotta believe in yourself. So it was after working with Steve that I said, you know what, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, at least right now.
Right.
I didn't go, I'm doing this for 30 years. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I kind of decided, like, look, this is what I want to do. But I am going to rise and fall based on what I do or don't do. And it's been that way. And I found things that I love to do and things that I don't care to do. And since then, I've worked, I was a creative director for a tobacco company for about a year. Wow. That was kind of odd. Yeah. Let's see if I can find what I did for that. If you're ever at a really crappy smoke shop, this is how I was able to originally buy my house. So, like, okay. And it's called Gunsmoke. That was it. It was called Gunsmoke Cigarettes. And let me do a really quick search here on my thing. And I did the kind of the crappy version of the Marlboro Man and Woman.
Okay.
And this gentleman found me at a Renaissance Festival and was like, "Hey, I want you to design these." And I was like, "Okay." I want you to look just like what you see, with Marlboro Man, but in your fancy style. And I'm like, "Okay." So I did. Okay, here they are. Here is the man. This is kind of goofy. Here is the man, and here's the woman. I've done some weird art. I've done nose art on a World War II fighter. that was called the Texas Twister. And once again, I was at a convention, and a gentleman, had been collecting my artwork and was like, "Hey, I really like your art. Can you do this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Can I?" So let's see if I have it in here. So he flew his World War II F-6 Navy fighter to an air base nearby where I lived, and he wanted me to do it traditionally, like the way Noah's Ark was painted. And I don't know how to use an airbrush. I still can't use them. And he was like, "Oh, well, do this." So I got up there, and he had auto body paints for me. And these things are huge, and they're worth, $200,000 or $300,000 restored.
Wow.
And I was worried to death. I was like, "Crap, I'm going to ruin his beautiful plane."
No way.
Yeah, he had sanded down that canopy that was right there, and I had drawn on it what the girl was supposed to look like, very 1940s pinup, and then I used auto body paint and put them into like muffin tins with the kind of whatever type of stuff, I can't remember, like an acetone or whatever base was, and then I hand painted it on there on one side and then the other. And it was weird. It was weird and kind of cool. Let's see if I have it, if I have pictures of the thing. So as an artist, if you're deciding to become an artist, you're going to do some weird stuff, and it's up to you to decide what you're comfortable doing and what you're comfortable not doing. It's somewhere. I obviously don't have it here. And I've been fortunate, at least in my career, that I've had as many amazing collectors that I have had that have been as supportive of me doing what I do and why I do what I do.
Well, I mean, looking at your work, it's actually absolutely amazing. Like, knowing how good your art is, it makes sense how successul you are. And it's funny because I think artists don't understand how. I mean, maybe this isn't true, but that you had kind of alluded to it earlier when you were talking about how I think it was your sister had told you need to submit this because it's really, really, really good, and you're probably gonna maybe even get sales or whatever. So she believed in your art, but you seemed kind of hesitant, and I think that a lot of artists probably feel that same way where they might not think that their art is good, but looking at your stuff, it's incredible. And
thank you.
And when you'd first started with Wizards of the Coast, you had mentioned that it was kind of a different process than it is today. How did you get the opportunity even to work with them? Was it like a process of that you just submitted work and they were like, "Yes, we'll take that," or like how did you even start?
She, you know what? Honestly, it was from being at a convention, which again, if the other artist wants to do, it can't hurt you by submitting stuff. All I can say is no, which sucks. Well, but you know what? And it sucks. Nobody likes it, and you never get used to it. You just kind of just go, and just deal with it again.
Right.
And at least for me, she happened to, one of the art directors was there with a person of, like I said, Lisa Stevens, who was one of the original creators of the game, and happened to see my work at Gen Con and liked it and chatted with me and said, "Hey, we want to do it." And nowadays, of course, sending stuff off, to submissions, whether it's cold or not, whether they ask for it or not, do it. Always, always. Because, it's not like they're going to come to your house and break your pencil or your drawing tablet and go, "No, you suck, you're terrible." It's never going to be like that. You're doing that to yourself already enough. You'll beat yourself up harder than any art director ever will.
Right.
It's trying to get over that, all of those mental problems that we have as creative people that keeps us from creating. There's and working for again, like I said, working for Magic when I did it yonks ago, which is now, oh my God, over 20 years ago, was very simple. Nowadays, they have a process where you go, I'm not certain how it does, but they have an application process. You send in what work you've done, maybe some previous work, even show the type of work that you're capable of.
Right.
And then they say yay or nay. Usually the process of working for a company of any type, or any process, whether it's commissioned work or, not just you doing it on your own, always starts with an idea.
Right.
And you were asking before, as a creative person, you got an idea in your head, you let your pencil bring it, you let your pencil create it. So for instance, I can show you, I did with my brother-in-law, it was published in 2006, 2 books. One was the Book of Angels that we did for Barnes & Noble,
Okay.
and the next was the Book of Nights. And we had to do a giant proposal that we went to Manhattan. Suman Wu, who was the one of the creative directors there, book editors there, saw my work at San Diego Comic-Con, chatted with me, talked about it, took some samples, and called me. I was like, what? Excuse me, yay. And then Alan and I went to Manhattan, because we're in Ohio, and drove to Manhattan and brought a big presentation and went and said, hey, this is what we want to do for it. And they went, sure, do it. So the process of doing what we do, let's see if I can show you that, usually starts as thumbnails, which means little rough scribble sketches.
Okay.
And when you start with them, you're getting your initial idea. Let me see if I can show you some quickie thumbnails. And I can show you this. This is how we do it when we were doing our Book of Nights. So for instance, this is a page from the Book of Nights that's showing you 4 or 5 layouts of what a layout of a page of a book can see. So if you look on there, you can see the little scribblies. Here's what we're doing. Scribble, 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 scribble. And the point is not to make a beautiful thing. It's to come across what the design is going to look like. So after that part is done and locked in, for instance, if you look in the top upper corner, the next thing you go to are roughs, or I call them roughs. That next part are a little more defined, but you're getting kind of the rough idea of what it needs to look like, and until you want to have it finished. So, like, for instance, here is the rough that we used for, if I can find it, hang on, the rough for pencils. With that, then you're going to kind of beat on it until you kind of have it laid out. So here was for a piece called The Ring of Fire. So she was Brunhilde, which is part of the Knights that do Night Stories. It's kind of it. And then here is her finished piece when I got her done completely. And most artists, when you're working with an assignment in mind, work that way. We try to figure out, so you're not starting backwards. So let's say, because I have a giant commission I have to do for a wonderful collector, and the piece is like 6 by 9 feet. So before I start, going, hey, here's this halfway done piece, and he goes, actually, it's supposed to have red hair and, blue eyes, and and I go, oh, great. And you step back and do it in stages. And the reason why you do that is so that you can pause in your stages and fix the problem of where it is.
Right.
And that's how it works that's how it worked when I did that with Magic the Gathering. I'm not sure how it is now. I imagine it kind of goes the same way. Here's one with this piece, Ring of Fire. Let's see if she can fit on here. Yep, and then here, beginning, middle, and like there was her scribble. If you look on there, that's a thumbnail. There's a rough, and then here is a finished piece. So you can actually see what I'm talking about when I say what I mean like that. Kind of like that we did with, kind of like what I did with Dystopia. I can show you with that one.
So your inspiration, when you do your drawings, those are images and things that you're actually creating in your head. For me, the creative process is a bit different. It takes inspiration from other people like you that kind of sparks ideas, and I don't want to say steal, but I kind of use that as inspiration to kind of twist and give life to the ideas that those inspire.
There it is, giving life to things. Because that's something that, I love that I do art, but it's not in motion. You don't get these feelings. You don't get to smell it. You don't get to interact with it. They're just stills. And as a creative person, at least me, I like to be around it, which is one of the reasons why I like to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Like the playmats, it's just kicking in my mind. Like, this is a great idea. Ruth should be making playmats, and you should be making the money for the playmats. I mean, it doesn't have to be old Magic designs. It could be your own fantasy designs. People like fantasy, and they love playmats. Playmats is a huge, huge thing.
Great. You're giving me a great excuse to talk to my licensing agent and say, "Give me playmats," and he'll go, "All right, I will."
I can't imagine they'd be that hard to like. I imagine they'll be profitable, and I think it'd be a good crossover into the playing card games, because it could be for any playing card game or anything.
Right. Some artists, the way that they're done is they're done on dye sublimation printing. Whenever you see when I sell my own printing, I have a 12-color inkjet printer that's about the size of a kitchen table. Canon Pro 2000. And I'm very fussy about the paper and how it's done, and we go over on matting and framing. That's traditional inkjet printing. Then there's regular 4-color process, which doesn't hold the color as well, but you can do thousands for cheap. The stuff that's done on a playmat is called dye sublimation printing. And like your t-shirts that are so beautiful, that's the same way. That ink is actually adhered inside the fabric or product of what it is. You can get dye sublimation printers that do them on like playmats. You could even buy them yourself now, or on mugs and things like that. The reason and cost prohibitive for artists not to do it is because, it costs us $12, $15, and artists can buy, and sell them themselves. Another artist that I set up with is at Dragon Con is Steve Argyle, who's a wonderful guy, does lots of magic card stuff.
So that name sounds familiar, actually. Yeah.
He's done a lot of magic ones. He's done lots of stuff in the industry. And I'm sitting here with one of his playmats right now that he has. And that an artist can do themselves, it's always the distribution and the cost of how much do I need to have, how much can I have. When I do my Ren fairs, I have to figure out, or conventions, okay, I have X amount of space. What's going to make the most money? What's the biggest profit margin?
Right.
And Alan, my husband, we talked about him before, figures that out. And how much am I going to do? I could do tons of different products, but I'd have to carry so many.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Money, and how much money am I going to actually make on that? So I always go for licensing, because you know what? The companies confront that. The reason why I love my licensing is I can buy those products wholesale from them. They handle the front end of all the production of it. They sell it to retailers. I buy wholesale the pieces that I want to buy.
And Mr. Wonderful always says licensing, licensing, licensing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So I couldn't buy those from Ultra Pro because they had already sold out of the ones when I went to get them. And then last year happened, and Gen Con was canceled, and all kind of conventions were canceled. So we're coming up when the Gen Con is happening this year. I'm skipping just because it's kind of a mess. Yeah. They're only partially opening.
Yeah, I saw that. It was very weird.
You know what? And this year, I'm just going to wait. I'll go next year. But I can focus on my Ren fairs, and I can sell them at my Ren fairs because I can buy them from Ultra Pro. But it's just if I can get it from them. They're like, well, we sold out. So you're right. Like for an artist, it's like, I need to be able to, I have these images I've got. I can do prints, but I want to sell merchandise and my own stuff. Playmats are a great idea. Great idea, because you can set your own price.
It looks like you already have somebody doing, maybe licensed from you. Amazon brand Artists of Magic?
No.
They're doing a playmat of your yokai.
Yeah, that is brain not working. That is, I'm trying to remember the name of the company. Yes, they do have mine, and which is great. That one turned out really nice. That name of the piece is called Ride of the Yokai.
Yep. Oh, yeah, that's right. Ride of the Yokai. Sorry, I just posted it in the general chat.
And I did the piece, and that's a personal piece. That was not for a company or anything like that. And I never have any problem signing somebody's stuff. Oh my God, what an attractive picture of me. I never have a problem. If somebody has a piece of merchandise or a magic card, I never mind signing anything. You've already paid your money for my stuff. I'm flattered that you got it. I think it's great that you've got it, and I think it's wonderful that you've had it there. Like, here's the piece. If I could put it in there. Is that what I want to do? No, that's not what I'm doing. Come here, you.
I already have the art piece of that one. Having a dragon playmat, and it seems like dragons are what you do mostly.
Yeah, I do. I'm like, why do you do so many? Well, they're kind of they've always been something I've loved. I mean, look at the art that's coming out from when we first began with Magic the Gathering. It's come a long way.
This is one of the ones from your original. It's a playmat that
That was Amy Weber.
It's for me. This is the Icy Manipulator from Ice Age back when I don't know if you know Amy Weber.
I might have met her briefly. And a lot of the original Magic artists do all know each other. A friend or an artist that I know who's wonderful is Mark Poole. And
really? You know Mark Poole?
Oh God. He is the nicest. He and his wife are amazing, and I drink with him at Dragon Con. So just the nicest guy in the world. I just love Mark. He's an OG
artist. I remember his work from Alpha and Beta.
Yeah. Let's see who else. Well, there was Quentin Hoover, and I think he's passed away since then.
Yeah.
Oh God. Let me see.
Now, how do you pronounce it? Is it Gay or Gway? How do you pronounce it? You mentioned her earlier. How do you pronounce
Rebecca Gay?
It is Rebecca Gay.
Oh, she is amazing. She is, and she's become just such an inspiration. I don't know if you follow her at all on Twitter, or she's become huge in the traditional art world, and just disruptive about just moving from going to just strictly gaming and things like that into gallery work, and just is an amazing woman. Just such an inspiration as a young artist or as a person at all, and just kind of broke free of any bonds of any stuff that she wanted to do. And a lot of it deals with sexism and racism, but it's still beautiful. And she's just amazing. Just such as a person, just so fantastic.
Like, we love the game of Magic the Gathering. Like, the Magic the Gathering is an awesome game. But what's more is art on the cards is probably what makes it successful. Like, sure, the game mechanically is fun, but a lot of the times, what else are you doing but just like kind of staring at the beautiful art of it's just a basic land, but look at how good that is. It's just awesome. Mm-hmm. So I think that, we need artists like you.
I'm a consumer. I eat the artwork that either Matt's giving to me as a story from a DM, or you as an artist that I'm looking at your cards.
Yeah.
The only thing I give back is my money or critical feedback, however you want. Hopefully this is some sort of format that, I can give the artist to have a voice too. That's why I'm not traditionally quiet, but I've been really, really quiet during most of this chat, rather than, I don't even like to call it an interview because it feels more like a fireside chat.
Yeah. What? And everything you're saying is just what brought you to it, and the passion that you have for it. And the fact that you're doing this with your time and your own money is amazing. That many artists, and honestly, it's been a year since none of us have gone to any conventions, and some of them might need it as just an outlet to feel like that we matter still. I think after all this horrible crap year that we've learned, or we hope, most of us that are making through it and trying not to be bitter assholes, appreciate the good people in the positive, I don't want to say necessarily good, but the positive people in your life, and wanting to have positive people around you, because it can be taken away so quickly and just sucked away, and then you're stuck in your house. Right. I don't know what you, but at first I was like, woohoo, I get to be an introvert and not give a shit. And then a couple months later it was like, this isn't good. And then there was, oh shit, my life is imploding, I'm depressed. And so I think I'll eat everything that's not nailed to the floor. And then winter in Ohio, which is, ugh. And then now that it's become spring, actively fighting against depression and just everything around you. And I feel like with, my friends my family, my amazing, art therapist who's great. I'm able to make my way out because I was not doing great last year. It was not good, and in this time, because like a lot of people, I don't think I'd suffer so much from depression, but anxiety. But my life was such a high pace. You just deal with it.
Right.
And never had what happened to us happen. Well, who has? Where everything's just slammed and my whole industry went down the toilet. Just everything. Whoosh. I've had it where at my different shops where there was a fire and like half the buildings burned down.
Wow.
There was flood, where that things had happened. I never had a pandemic where the entire everything I do was gone.
Right.
Just gone. And I was like, I'll do it. No, I didn't do my own art. I just did grunty stuff. So I had enough money that we could pay off our house. That's all I did because I couldn't emotionally handle it. It was hard enough to get up out of bed every day last year that it was just, I just want to pretend I know it's there. I know what it is. I don't really want to examine what I've already examined it to death.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I
feel guilty because for me, didn't really experience any of that. I've always been a homebody. I've always been an introvert. I don't go outside. I don't like nature that much. I hate bugs. So like going outside, you get eaten by mosquitoes. Mosquitoes love me. So for me, for the first majority of it, I would say that, yeah, I was like unaffected completely. If anything, I was just like, yeah, this is cool, whatever. Like it's not good. Obviously, it's not good at all. But for me personally, it didn't affect me that well or that much. But after a certain time, I noticed that it did start to, seclusion starts to really mess with anybody.
Oh yeah, and don't feel guilty about that. Don't ever feel like because you didn't get to feel like shit that it was a bad thing that you were able to, who you are inside was conditioned to be able to handle that situation.
I have 3 wonderful ladies in the house. Actually, the state of the world has changed to where, I'm actually getting to spend more time with her that I haven't had.
I appreciate my job now. I was getting a little like, this is so hard. And I was like, now after I'm like, it's not that damn hard. You should just be appreciative for what you've got and for where you are. And I'm like, you're right. I am. I appreciate what I do, but I still have boundaries with it, and we have time away from it. And that's something that Alan's really taught me, because when I first did it, I was just, that's all I did. Just would work and do art and do stuff online and then have dinner and come back and do it and never stop. And being around an Australian is they don't know Australian is like that. None. They are not like America. After 5 or 6 o'clock at night, they are done. They have weekends, and you do not interrupt their weekends, their time with their family, their friends. No. And as an American, that's like, oh, that's weird and lazy. And they're like, no, it's balance.
No, that's awesome.
We as Americans need that. When we went to go to Italy, it was like 2016 for a friend who got married there when they were there for 3 weeks. We had to really slow down, And I met a guy there. We went to a Magic the Gathering shop, and we went in there and walked around. And a friend that was with us, who's wonderful, speaks fluent Italian, and she told him that I had done Magic cards. And he like jumped up and ran over there and found my cards, and I signed it for him. And such a nice guy. But they have a day, afternoon, everybody shuts down, even the grocery stores. You have lunch or whatever, and then you come home and you have dinner, and that's it. We as a country need to have a little bit more balance. I notice when artists get together, a lot of us talk business.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of us don't know and don't. I can have a certain value, especially on what people do when they work for us and how much materials cost. But I'm not allowed to price my own originals because I don't price them enough. Alan and my sister Sarah, who run the business, are the ones that price it. Because I'll go, I don't know, $100. And they're like, no.
So there's probably no standard. How do you standardize something that is very perceptive based? Like, yeah, I wouldn't even know.
Original, that's always been for people. Other artists have asked me that. I'm like, okay, how attached are? Okay, Can you pay your rent this month? Yes, no, or mortgage. No. Okay.
Like, well, $50. Yeah, that'll give me a little bit of food money. Yeah, sure. I spent 100 hours on that, but sure, $50 gives me money for gas.
Yeah, and you do it from there. Okay, once you have that, and you go, how attached are you to that particular piece? Is it something really personal that if it was gone, even if it was well loved, it'll bother you? You know, imagine it just being gone. Does it bother you? Not the print, not the image, just that original piece. Does that bother you? Nah. Well, then it's okay. Yeah. Well, then if you do price it times 5 times the amount that you think it should go. Price it so outrageous that if somebody takes it, you'd feel okay about it. The most expensive piece I've had go was like probably $5,000.
Nice.
Which is great, and I'm so thankful for the people that have collected that. But you know, my originals, and I'm not really allowed to price them. The ones that were very close to me, I priced very high, and they went to happy new homes. But the pieces that I haven't sold, I keep them. I don't have a lot of my own art. I have a lot of other people's art.
Oh, that's
actually,
cool.
Most of us as other artists do that. We collect other artists.
It makes sense.
Whether we trade,
Ooh.
or whether I want to help support another artist. I love sculptures of different types, and I love weird monsters, not scary, kind of goofy. So I love to support other artists that have these kind of goofy, weird monster sculptures.
That's got to be a great feeling that you're putting something out there. Like what I do on a daily basis, nobody knows. It's a bunch of computer,
saying.
Right? It's not. It doesn't make people go, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" You know, when they see it, when they see your artwork and their face lights up and they feel something. You know, that's got to be, I assume, a great feeling for you to know that you're bringing that sensation. You're bringing that person alive a little more. Just seeing your art, going, "Wow, that's really fantastic."
That never gets old, ever. Even after 30 years.
I was like, if it did, you'd probably stop.
And to some extent,
it's true. Once you feel like it's a grind, then you need to really look at why you're doing it.
Yep.
Because if it got to the point where it would be just a grind, well, then there's other jobs I could do.
Is there anything that you want to tell us or the people that might be watching, like things that are in store for Ruth Thompson coming up, things that you are excited about, something? Is there anything like that?
Let's see. Well, we have some of our fairs coming up, which is great. You know, short term and then long term.
Right.
And I do have some physically large commissions that I have to do. And then for myself, Alan and I finally he got the 3D printer to play with it. But I also bought myself a bunch of sculpting stuff.
Ooh.
So for myself, sales, I don't know. But it's for me to bring into life.
Like clay sculpting?
Not clay. I'm using monster clay and also an epoxy that will harden.
Okay. Like a UV curing resin?
No, it's not a resin. It's an actual
or an epoxy. I'm sorry.
It's a cool clay. It's called apoxy. APOXIE.
Okay.
And you mix the two clays together, and as long as you keep it moist, it will stay malleable. But once you let it out, it actually air dries.
Okay. Interesting.
And I just want to sculpt, man. I want to dig in my garden. I'm actually going to go dig in my garden. I haven't done that in years.
Huh.
And ride my horsey, because she's as close to a dragon as I can get. Okay. I know there's poop and things like that. And they're like, "Oh, you think of a unicorn?" No, man, she's big. I think of a big dragon because when you're on the back, man, when she's going and there's all that power, it's like, wow. So I think that I'm actually excited about doing some art. Doing my own pieces too. Not just, and even I have that division between pieces that I do that I know I can sell, that are marketable or great pieces. There are my ideas, but then there are ones I want to do for myself. And those are very personal, and not like creepy personal, like, ew. No, they're pieces that are personal to me.
A sentimental value.
That's scary. Yeah, that's scary for any creative or any person to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to express myself. Because I've been doing it so long, I can kind of technique it out. I know, dragons, I like them. I do. I love them. But I know how to do them. I'm not emotionally vulnerable when I'm doing them. But These other pieces that I'm doing now, I won't even, I can show them to people, but would I do prints of them? I don't know. Probably not, because it would break my heart.
You had said that you did, you do take, what is it, commission works, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a commission. Not just me, from any artist, can be whatever. You know?
Right. I was just saying, are you taking them currently?
Not until I get the giant big one done.
Okay.
I got to get the big 6x9er, and it's his classic fantasy slash some fantasy, but it has aspects of modern. Well, actually, more like angels, and it was from an old game, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. And it's his first character he ever had, that
cool.
eventually passed, and their story. And this is very important to him, and so I really wanted to do that traditionally, and that one will take a while, but I'm excited about it. I'm actually excited about getting out oils and having the smell in the house.
So Magic's been doing things very differently over the last year, which is what, it was the state of the world that brought me back into Magic, sitting around bored. Actually went into my local game store to pick up other board game stuff. And as I was going up to the counter, he had a Magic the Gathering land sitting out on the counter, and it had a little Godzilla on it. I was like, oh, well, that is just really effing cool. I like Godzilla. It got very mixed reviews. Some people really hate it in the Magic community. Some really love it. I just thought it was neat. And it had a really little Godzilla in the background. I was like, oh, wow, it's Godzilla. So they did a Godzilla set. No, these aren't the ones I'm talking about. The one I was talking about had like a really almost like, ooh, where's Waldo in the picture kind of on a land. And like what he just put up there, they did a crossover, right? So they've started doing crossovers. Even things like The Walking Dead. They had a secret lair for The Walking Dead. They did a My Little Pony secret lair, which is just a secret lair is just a very select set of cards that they put different art on them. And one of the upcoming crossovers this summer, the base set, so it's not just 5 or 6 cards, it's a whole 300 whatever card set, Dungeons and Dragons crossover. So
wow.
Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering.
I'm super happy for this.
This isn't the only thing that's coming up. They also have a Commander set, which is a smaller subset for Warhammer 40K.
Oh,
and
wow.
The big bomb for me, but Lord of the Rings crossover. They're going to have a now, I don't know what that's going to be like or when it's going to be, but there's a lot of stuff that I consider to be exciting.
That is exciting.
Maybe you could even tap them, like, hey, you're starting to play in my wheelhouse here. Maybe you could bring some of your old connections and get involved in that again. I can desire to do that.
You know what? That's a question that I get a lot. Is don't you want to do any more work with them? And mostly what I say is that I'm kind of spoiled now. I do the projects I want to do.
Right.
I don't work for any company like full time. And I planned that, that was years ago. I decided that years ago. But if I want to do a project, pardon me, if I want to do a project or work with someone like that, then I'll do it. I'll be like, oh, that's great. It's exciting. But to get to do a Magic card now or to work in the Magic community with other artists to get in there, it's really competitive. It's very difficult to get in there. You got to jump through a lot of hoops. You have to spend a lot of time contacting people, making sure it's okay, blah, 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 blah. And when I did it years ago, there was some fantasy artists, but not like there is today. And to be honest with you, I want to do my own thing.
I can tell that, yeah.
That being said, it's not about the money, okay? Because they pay really well. And I'm working on big commissions for people that are expensive, and I'm spending a lot of time with them. But then again, on the other hand, I just did a little commission for someone who's a friend of mine that, their pet passed away. So it wasn't fantasy, it was a neat little commission I did because I wanted to do it because I wanted to do it. And now that I've been doing it for 30 years, I understand that I have a limited amount of time, like every day. And even every year, and energy, everyone understands. I mean, I'm finally understanding that. I only have so much mental energy every day.
Right.
And if I wanted to go in and do ones, I know how to do it. I know where the process is, but I kind of want to do my own things. And I want to do my own projects. And if I wanted to get back into it, it'd be competitive and hard to get into it. And there's people out there that are amazing artists, and that is their dream, and I don't want to get in the way of that.
That's awesome.
No, I truly believe in that. Go where you're celebrated, and I certainly appreciate, and that's a form of celebration that you gave your time to us tonight, both of you guys.
Yeah,
and
5 hours.
Sorry
That's
away
amazing.
from you for so long, Alan.
I was just make sure it works.
Thanks for letting us borrow your wife for such a long period.
4.5 hours of uninterrupted WoW time. That's a rarity. I never get that.
It's true. No folks, no wife, no nothing.
Yeah.
They didn't. It's usually me. So, all right, guys. I'll talk to you later on. And good gaming. And this was wonderful.
Thank you.
Fantastic.